Before we dive in, drop a comment and tell us where you're tuning in from. And when you reach the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Now, let's begin. The rain hammered against the cracked window of Madison Cole's studio apartment, each drop a reminder that her landlord had ignored her repair requests for the third month running. She sat cross-legged on her second-hand futon, scrolling through apartment listings on her laptop, her coffee growing cold beside a stack of unpaid bills. 27 years old, working double shifts as a graphic designer at a startup that paid her in experience and empty promises, Madison had exactly 72 hours to find a new place before her current lease expired. The eviction notice taped to her door that morning had been the final straw. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend, Chloe. Found you a miracle. Luxury loft in downtown Chicago. Rent is half market rate. Owner wants tenant ASAP. Meeting today at 4. Madison's heart leaped. Too good to be true, she typed back. Chloe responded with a shrugging emoji. What do you have to lose? By 3:30, Madison stood outside a gleaming glass tower in the heart of the financial district, craning her neck to count the floors. The building looked like it had been designed by someone who thought regular people didn't deserve to live in architectural masterpieces. The lobby was all white marble and modern art sculptures that probably cost more than her entire college education. A concierge in a crisp suit directed her to the penthouse elevator with a practiced smile that said he could smell her thrift store blazer from across the room. The elevator hummed upward, and Madison's stomach dropped. What kind of landlord rents a penthouse at half price? A serial killer, definitely a serial killer. The doors opened directly into the loft. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Chicago skyline like a postcard. Exposed brick walls, polished concrete floors, a kitchen island that could double as a dining table for 12. Madison stepped inside, her worn sneakers squeaking against the immaculate surface. Hello? Her voice echoed. A door at the far end of the loft opened, and a man emerged. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal gray suit that fit him like it had been tailored by angels, dark hair, sharp jawline, and eyes the color of midnight that seemed to catalog every detail of her appearance in 2 seconds flat. Madison's first thought was, oh God, he's gorgeous. Her second thought was, oh God, I wore my ratty jeans with the paint stains. You must be Madison Cole. His voice was deep, smooth, and completely devoid of warmth. I'm Sebastian Hale. Madison extended her hand awkwardly. Thanks for meeting me on such short notice. I really need to find a place fast, and Sebastian's handshake was firm, brief, professional. He gestured toward a sleek leather sofa. Please, sit. We have paperwork to review. Madison perched on the edge of the couch, clutching her canvas tote bag like a life raft. Sebastian sat across from her, sliding a thick folder across the glass coffee table. The lease agreement. Standard terms. Rent is $1,500 a month, utilities included. Parking space in the garage. Access to the building gym and rooftop terrace. Madison blinked. $1,500? For this? The average rent in this neighborhood was triple that. Sebastian's expression didn't flicker. I prefer a tenant who values the space over someone who treats it like a temporary hotel. You come highly recommended. Chloe had vouched for her, apparently. Madison opened the folder, scanning the pages. Legal jargon swam before her eyes. Tenant responsibilities, maintenance clauses, termination policies. Everything looked standard. She reached the signature page. There was a line for her name. Another for Sebastian's. This seems straightforward, Madison said, pulling a pen from her bag. Any weird rules I should know about? No parties? No subletting? No pets? Sebastian leaned back, his gaze unreadable. No pets. Parties are fine as long as they don't disturb other residents, and you're welcome to have guests, within reason. Madison nodded, relief flooding through her. Great. I'm not exactly a party animal anyway. My idea of a wild Friday night is binge-watching design tutorials and eating takeout. For the first time, Sebastian's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. That sounds perfectly acceptable. Madison signed her name with a flourish, then slid the folder back across the table. Sebastian produced his own pen, a sleek silver instrument that probably cost more than her laptop, and signed beside her name. Done. Madison exhaled. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much this helps. I was starting to think I'd end up sleeping in my car. Sebastian closed the folder with a decisive snap. You can move in tomorrow. I'll have the keys delivered to you by noon. Madison stood, extending her hand again. Seriously, thank you. This is a lifesaver. Sebastian rose, shaking her hand once more. His grip was warm this time, lingering just a fraction longer than necessary. Welcome home, Madison. She left the penthouse feeling like she'd just won the lottery. The rain had stopped, and the city sparkled under the emerging sunlight. For the first time in months, Madison felt like maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. That night, she packed her meager belongings into cardboard boxes, humming to herself. Chloe called to check in. So? How did it go? Is he a serial killer? Madison laughed. No, just absurdly hot and weirdly generous. I still don't understand why the rent is so low, but I'm not complaining. Chloe's voice turned sly. Absurdly hot, huh? Describe. Madison rolled her eyes. Tall dark hair. Looks like he stepped out of a cologne ad. Definitely out of my league. Chloe squealed. Oh my God, you're going to fall in love with your landlord. This is a romance novel waiting to happen. Madison snorted. Yeah, right. He barely smiled. I'm pretty sure his idea of fun is reviewing quarterly earnings reports. Still, as she taped up the last box, Madison couldn't shake the image of Sebastian's piercing gaze, the way his hand had felt against hers, warm and solid. Stop it, she muttered to herself. He's your landlord. That's it. But when she closed her eyes that night, she dreamed of midnight eyes and a voice that made her pulse quicken. The next day, Madison moved into the penthouse with Chloe's help. They hauled boxes up the elevator, marveling at the space. This is insane, Chloe said, spinning in the middle of the living room. You could fit my entire apartment in just this one room. Madison set down a box labeled kitchen stuff and wiped sweat from her forehead. I know. I keep waiting for someone to tell me there's been a mistake. As if on cue, the elevator chimed. The doors opened, and Sebastian stepped out, holding a small wooden box. Madison's heart did an unexpected somersault. Oh, hi. I didn't expect to see you today. Sebastian's gaze flicked to Chloe, then back to Madison. I wanted to deliver these personally. He handed her the box. Inside were 2 sets of keys, each attached to a leather keychain embossed with the building's logo. Madison lifted one out, feeling the weight of it. These are really nice. Thank you. Sebastian nodded. If you need anything, my office is on the 40th floor. Don't hesitate to reach out. Chloe, ever the troublemaker, stepped forward with a grin. I'm Chloe, by the way. Madison's best friend and unofficial bodyguard. Thanks for giving her such an amazing deal. Sebastian's expression remained neutral, but Madison thought she detected a faint hint of amusement in his eyes. It's mutually beneficial. I'm sure Madison will take excellent care of the space. Chloe nudged Madison with her elbow. Oh, she will. She's obsessive about cleaning. You won't find a single dust bunny on her watch. Madison's face burned. Chloe, please. Sebastian's lips curved, just barely. Good to know. He turned to leave, then paused. There's a building event next Saturday. A mixer for residents. You're welcome to attend. Madison blinked. A mixer? Sebastian's gaze held hers. It's optional, but it might be a good opportunity to meet your neighbors. And, he added after a beat, I'll be there. Before Madison could respond, he stepped into the elevator and disappeared. Chloe let out a low whistle. Girl, he is into you. Madison shook her head. He's just being polite. He's the building owner. It's his job to be welcoming. Chloe crossed her arms. No landlord delivers keys personally and invites you to mixers. Trust me, He's interested. Madison turned away, hiding her smile. Even if he was, which he's not, I just signed a lease. Dating my landlord would be a disaster. Chloe shrugged. Disaster or destiny. Sometimes they look the same. Over the next few days, Madison settled into the penthouse. She set up her tiny workspace by the window, arranged her thrift store furniture in the vast living room, and tried not to feel like an imposter. Every time she walked through the front door, she half expected someone to tell her she didn't belong. But no one did. The building staff greeted her warmly, the other residents nodded politely in the elevator, and slowly Madison began to relax. On Wednesday evening, she was editing a client project when her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Miss Cole, this is Gerald from Building Management. There's a package for you at the front desk. Madison frowned. I wasn't expecting anything. It was delivered this afternoon. Would you like me to bring it up? No. I'll come down. Thanks. She rode the elevator down, curiosity prickling. The concierge handed her a sleek black box tied with a silver ribbon. No return address. Back in the penthouse, Madison untied the ribbon and opened the box. Inside was a bottle of wine, expensive looking, with a handwritten note on thick cardstock. Welcome to the building. Enjoy settling in. S.H. Madison's breath caught. Sebastian. She turned the note over, but there was nothing else. Just his initials. Chloe's voice echoed in her mind. He's interested. Madison set the note down, her pulse racing. It's just a welcome gift. Landlords do that, right? But the wine sat on her counter like a question she didn't know how to answer. Saturday arrived faster than Madison expected. She stood in front of her closet, staring at her limited wardrobe options. The mixer was cocktail attire, according to the building newsletter, which meant her usual jeans and t-shirts wouldn't cut it. She finally settled on a simple black dress she'd worn to a friend's wedding 2 years ago, paired with the only heels she owned that didn't make her look like she was about to topple over. Chloe had offered to come as moral support, but Madison declined. If she was going to live here, she needed to face the other residents on her own. The rooftop terrace was transformed. String lights crisscrossed overhead, casting a warm glow over the crowd. A bartender in a crisp white shirt mixed cocktails behind a portable bar, and servers circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres that looked like tiny works of art. Madison accepted a glass of champagne and hovered near the edge of the terrace, pretending to admire the view. The truth was, she felt painfully out of place. Everyone else looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine, effortlessly elegant in designer clothes and confident smiles. You came. Madison turned. Sebastian stood beside her holding a glass of whiskey. He'd traded his suit for dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Madison's mouth went dry. Yeah. Thought I should meet the neighbors. Sebastian's gaze swept over her, lingering just long enough to make her skin tingle. You look lovely. Madison's cheeks flushed. Thanks. You clean up nice too. He smiled then, a real smile that reached his eyes and made her heart stutter. I'll take that as a compliment. They stood in silence for a moment, the city sprawling below them, a sea of lights and possibilities. So, Madison said, searching for something to say. Do you always attend these mixers? Sebastian took a sip of his whiskey. Only when there's someone worth talking to. Madison's breath hitched. Was he flirting? Before she could respond, a woman in a red dress approached, her smile sharp as a blade. Sebastian, darling, I didn't know you'd be here. Sebastian's expression cooled. Vanessa, the woman, Vanessa, slid her arm through Sebastian's with practiced ease. We need to talk about the charity gala next month. Your mother insists you bring a date, and I thought Madison's stomach twisted. Of course, someone like Sebastian would have women lining up. Sebastian gently extracted his arm. Vanessa, this is Madison Cole. She just moved into the penthouse. Vanessa's gaze raked over Madison, dismissive and calculating. Charming. Well, Sebastian, we'll talk later. She sauntered away, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume in her wake. Madison forced a smile. She seems nice. Sebastian's jaw tightened. She's persistent, I'll give her that. An awkward silence settled between them. Madison drained her champagne, suddenly desperate to leave. I should probably mingle. Don't want to monopolize your time. Sebastian caught her wrist, his touch gentle but firm. Madison. She looked up, meeting his gaze. Stay, he said quietly. Please. And just like that, the noise of the party faded. It was just the two of them, suspended in a moment that felt both fragile and inevitable. Okay, Madison whispered. I'll stay. The weeks that followed blurred together in a haze of late-night design deadlines and unexpected encounters with Sebastian. Madison couldn't seem to avoid him. They crossed paths in the elevator, in the lobby, even once at a coffee shop 3 blocks away where he'd smiled and said, "Stalking me, Miss Cole?" She'd laughed, flustered, and replied, "You wish, Mr. Hale." But the truth was, every time she saw him, her heart did that stupid fluttering thing that made her feel like a teenager with a crush. It was ridiculous. He was her landlord, for God's sake. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd asked her to stay at the mixer. The warmth in his eyes when he smiled at her. One Thursday evening, Madison was hunched over her laptop, wrestling with a logo design that refused to cooperate, when her phone buzzed. Sebastian's name flashed on the screen. Her pulse spiked. Hello? Miss Cole, are you free for dinner? Madison nearly dropped her phone. Dinner? There's a matter I'd like to discuss. Business-related. Her heart sank. Business. Of course. Sure. When? Tonight, if you're available. I can pick you up in 20 minutes. Madison glanced at her reflection in the darkened window. Messy bun, oversized sweatshirt, no makeup. 20 minutes? I need a bit more time. 30 minutes? Sebastian's voice held a hint of amusement. 30 minutes. I'll meet you in the lobby. Madison hung up and bolted to her bedroom, tearing through her closet. Business dinner. What did that even mean? She settled on dark jeans, a silk blouse, and ankle boots, swiping on mascara and lip gloss with shaking hands. Chloe would be screaming right now, she muttered. Exactly 30 minutes later, Madison stepped off the elevator. Sebastian waited by the entrance, devastatingly handsome in a tailored navy suit. His eyes lit up when he saw her. You're punctual. Madison shrugged. Graphic designers live and die by deadlines. Sebastian held the door open, gesturing to a sleek black car idling at the curb. A driver stood beside it, opening the back door. Madison slid inside, the leather seats buttery soft beneath her. Sebastian joined her, and the car pulled smoothly into traffic. So, Madison said, trying to sound casual. What's this business matter? Sebastian glanced at her, his expression unreadable. I'll explain over dinner. The restaurant was the kind of place Madison had only seen in magazines. Dim lighting, white tablecloths, waiters who moved like dancers. The host greeted Sebastian by name and led them to a private corner table. Madison sat, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. This is, she gestured vaguely, a lot for a business dinner. Sebastian poured her a glass of wine. I believe in doing things properly. Madison took a sip, the wine rich and velvety on her tongue. Okay, I'm officially intimidated. Sebastian's lips quirked. Don't be. You belong here as much as anyone. Madison laughed softly. I'm pretty sure my credit card would disagree. They ordered, the waiter rattling off specials in French, and Madison let Sebastian choose for both of them. When the waiter left, Sebastian leaned forward, his gaze intense. Madison, there's something I need to tell you. Her stomach flipped. That sounds ominous. It's about the lease you signed. Madison's breath caught. Oh God, is there a problem? I can pay more if Sebastian shook his head. It's not about money. He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. The document you signed wasn't a standard lease. Madison frowned. What do you mean? Sebastian reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. He slid it across the table. This is a copy of what you signed. Madison unfolded it, her eyes scanning the text. It looked exactly like the lease she remembered. Legalese, terms, conditions. Her signature at the bottom. I don't understand. What's different? Sebastian pointed to a paragraph near the top. Read this section. Madison squinted at the fine print. The undersigned parties agree to enter into a binding marital contract, effective upon execution of this agreement. Both parties consent to the terms of matrimony as outlined herein. The words didn't make sense. Madison read them again, her brain struggling to process. Marital contract? Matrimony? She looked up, her voice shaking. This is a joke, right? Sebastian's expression was grave. I'm afraid not. Madison's hands trembled. The paper fluttered. Are you telling me I didn't sign a lease? I signed a marriage contract? Sebastian nodded slowly. Yes. The room tilted. Madison gripped the edge of the table, her pulse roaring in her ears. This can't be legal. It's fraud. It's insane. It's entirely legal, Sebastian said quietly. And I'm sorry. I didn't intend for it to happen this way. Madison's voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. You tricked me. You made me sign a marriage contract and pretended it was a lease. How is that not fraud? Sebastian raised a hand, his tone calm. Please let me explain. Explain? Madison's laugh was sharp, bitter. What could you possibly say to make this okay? Sebastian leaned back, his jaw tight. My family has certain expectations. I'm the sole heir to the Hale estate. My grandfather's will stipulates that I must be married by my 35th birthday or the entire fortune goes to charity. Madison stared at him. So you decided to trick some random woman into marrying you? I didn't trick you, Sebastian said, his voice hardening. I offered you a home when you desperately needed one. In return, all I'm asking is that you fulfill the terms of the contract you willingly signed. Willingly? Madison's voice cracked. I thought I was signing a lease. Sebastian's gaze didn't waver. Ignorance of the contract doesn't negate your signature. Madison shoved her chair back, standing abruptly. This is insane. I'm leaving. Sebastian stood too. Madison, please. Sit down. We can discuss this. There's nothing to discuss, Madison said, her voice shaking. I'm not married to you. I'm not playing along with this twisted scheme. And I'm moving out tonight. She turned to leave, but Sebastian's voice stopped her. If you break the contract, you'll owe me $2 million. Madison froze. What? The penalty clause, Sebastian said evenly. Page 7. If either party terminates the agreement prematurely, they forfeit $2 million. Madison's legs nearly gave out. She sank back into her chair, her vision swimming. I don't have $2 million. I barely have 2,000. Exactly, Sebastian said quietly. Which is why I'm asking you to honor the contract. Madison buried her face in her hands, her mind reeling. This couldn't be happening. It was a nightmare. A sick joke. How long? She whispered. Sebastian hesitated. The contract is valid for 1 year. After that, we can dissolve the marriage quietly, and you'll walk away with no penalties. 1 year. Madison's throat tightened. You want me to pretend to be your wife for a year? Not pretend, Sebastian corrected. Legally, you are my wife. But yes, I'm asking you to maintain the appearance of a marriage. In exchange, you'll live in the penthouse rent-free, and I'll cover all your expenses. Madison looked up, her eyes burning. And what do you get out of this? Besides saving your inheritance? Sebastian's gaze softened. I get to keep my family's legacy. And perhaps, he added, Almost gently, you'll find that the arrangement isn't as terrible as you think. Madison wanted to scream. She wanted to storm out, to call a lawyer, to burn the contract and everything it represented. But the cold, hard truth was that she had no leverage. No money. No options. She was trapped. "Fine," she said, her voice hollow. "1 year. But after that, I never want to see you again." Sebastian nodded, his expression unreadable. Agreed. They finished dinner in silence, the food tasteless, the wine bitter. When the car dropped Madison back at the penthouse, she went straight to her bedroom and collapsed on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She was married, to a man she barely knew, a man who'd manipulated her into signing away a year of her life. And the worst part? A tiny, traitorous part of her heart whispered that maybe, just maybe, this disaster might become something else entirely. Madison spent the weekend locked in the penthouse, alternating between rage and disbelief. She ignored Sebastian's calls, deleted his texts, and seriously considered packing her bags and fleeing to Canada. But every time she opened her suitcase, the memory of that penalty clause stopped her cold. $2 million. She might as well have signed her soul away. On Monday morning, a knock at the door jolted her from her spiral. She opened it to find a woman in a sharp gray suit, holding a leather portfolio. "Miss Cole? I'm Diane Wu, Mr. Hale's attorney. May I come in?" Madison stepped aside, numb. Diane settled on the sofa, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. "I understand this situation is unusual, but I want to assure you that everything is legally sound." Madison laughed bitterly. Legally sound doesn't mean morally right. Diane's expression remained neutral. "Mr. Hale asked me to go over the contract with you, to ensure you understand your rights and obligations." She pulled out the document, pointing to various clauses. "As his spouse, you're entitled to a monthly allowance of $10,000. All household expenses will be covered. You'll attend public events as needed, but your private life remains your own." Madison's head spun. $10,000 a month? For pretending to be married? Diane nodded. "Additionally, if you complete the full year, you'll receive a settlement of $500,000. Madison's breath caught. $500,000? That's insane. Diane's lips curved faintly. "Mr. Hale is a generous man." Madison wanted to argue, but the number hung in the air, tempting and terrifying. $500,000. She could pay off her student loans, build a real design portfolio, maybe even start her own firm. But what would it cost her? After Diane left, Madison sat in silence, the contract spread before her like a map of her own personal hell. Her phone buzzed. "Sebastian, we need to talk." Face to face, Madison closed her eyes. She couldn't avoid him forever. "Fine. Your office. 1 hour." Sebastian's office on the 40th floor was exactly what Madison expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, a desk that probably cost more than her car. He stood when she entered, his expression guarded. "Thank you for coming." Madison crossed her arms. "Let's get this over with." "What do you want?" Sebastian gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." She remained standing. "I'm not here to chat, Sebastian. You lied to me, manipulated me, and now you expect me to play house for a year. So tell me what you want, so I can go back to hating you in peace." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "I didn't lie. Every word in that contract was there for you to read." Madison's voice rose. In tiny print, buried in legal jargon. "You knew I wouldn't catch it. You counted on it." Sebastian's eyes flashed. "And you signed without reading. That's on you." The words stung because they were true. Madison had been desperate, careless, and now she was paying the price. She sank into the chair, her anger draining into exhaustion. "What do you want from me, Sebastian?" Sebastian sat across from her, his voice quieter. I need you to attend a family dinner this Friday. My grandfather will be there, and he expects to meet my wife. Madison's stomach churned. Your wife? God, that sounds wrong. It's the truth, Sebastian said. Legally, you are my wife. Madison glared at him. Don't remind me. Sebastian leaned forward, his gaze intense. I know this isn't what you signed up for. But I'm asking you to try. 1 year, that's all I need. And in return, you'll have financial security you've never had before. Madison bit her lip. She hated that he was right. She hated that part of her was already calculating what she could do with that money. Fine, she said finally. I'll go to your family dinner. I'll play the dutiful wife. But don't expect me to like it. Sebastian's expression softened. I don't expect you to like it. I just expect you to survive it. Madison couldn't help the faint smile that tugged at her lips. Survive. Great pep talk. Sebastian's mouth curved. My family can be intense, but you're stronger than you think. Madison stood. I'll see you Friday. Wear something formal. And, he added as she reached the door, thank you. Madison didn't turn around. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen me around your family. Friday arrived with the inevitability of a storm. Madison stood in front of her mirror, smoothing down the emerald green dress Chloe had lent her. It's designer, Chloe had said, thrusting the garment into Madison's hands. You need to look like you belong in a billionaire's world. Madison had protested, but now, looking at her reflection, she had to admit the dress was stunning. It hugged her curves, the fabric shimmering under the light, and for the first time in days, she felt almost confident. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Hale is here. Madison grabbed her clutch and headed downstairs. Sebastian waited by the car, and when he saw her, his eyes widened. You look, he paused, searching for words. Incredible. Madison's cheeks flushed. Don't get used to it. This is Chloe's dress. Sebastian opened the car door. Remind me to thank her. The drive to the Hale estate took 40 minutes, winding through tree-lined roads until a massive iron gate appeared. The car passed through, and Madison's jaw dropped. The mansion was a sprawling stone structure, all columns and arched windows, surrounded by manicured gardens that looked like they'd been ripped from a painting. This is where you grew up? Madison breathed. Sebastian's expression was distant. Yes. Madison wanted to ask more, but the car stopped, and a butler opened the door. Inside, the mansion was even more intimidating. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, walls lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors. Sebastian led her through a grand hallway to a dining room where a long table was set for 6. A silver-haired man sat at the head, his gaze sharp despite his age. Grandfather, Sebastian said. This is Madison, my wife. The old man's eyes raked over Madison, assessing. So, this is the girl who finally tamed you. Madison forced a smile. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Hale. Call me Edward. Sit. Dinner was an exercise in endurance. Sebastian's mother, a poised woman with icy blue eyes, asked pointed questions about Madison's background, her family, her intentions. His sister, a beautiful blonde named Charlotte, watched with thinly veiled amusement. And Edward, he said little, but his gaze never left Madison. By the time dessert arrived, Madison felt like she'd been interrogated by the FBI. In the car ride home, she slumped against the seat. That was brutal. Sebastian's lips twitched. You handled it well. Madison shot him a look. Your mother thinks I'm a gold digger, your sister thinks I'm a joke, and your grandfather, I have no idea what he thinks. Edward liked you, Sebastian said. Trust me. Madison laughed. How can you tell? He didn't ask you to leave. That's high praise. Madison shook her head, but she couldn't suppress her smile. Your family is terrifying." Sebastian's hand found hers, warm and steady. "And you survived. That makes you braver than you know." Madison's breath hitched, his touch sent sparks racing up her arm, and for a moment, she forgot this was all fake. When they reached the penthouse, Sebastian walked her to the door. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for tonight." Madison met his gaze. 1 year, Sebastian. That's all you get." He nodded, but something in his eyes made her heart stutter. 1 year. And then, we'll see. Living with the knowledge that she was technically married to Sebastian Hale was like walking around with a secret bomb strapped to her chest. Madison threw herself into work, accepting every freelance project her meager network could offer, desperate for distraction. But Sebastian had other plans. On Tuesday, a courier delivered a sleek black card embossed with gold lettering. Mrs. Madison Hale was printed beneath the Hale Industries logo, along with a note in Sebastian's precise handwriting. "For household expenses and anything you need. No limits." Madison stared at the card like it might bite her. $10,000 a month, Diane had said. But this was a credit card with no spending limit. It felt like a gilded cage. She shoved it into a drawer and went back to her laptop. But that evening, her ancient laptop froze mid-project, the screen flickering before going black. Madison groaned, jabbing the power button uselessly. Of course this happens now. Her phone rang. Sebastian, she considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. "What?" His voice was amused. "Bad day? My laptop just died, and I have a client presentation due tomorrow. So yes, bad day. There's an electronics store 2 blocks from the building. Use the card I sent." Madison bristled. "I don't need your charity." "It's not charity. It's practicality. You're my wife, Madison. Let me take care of this." The word sent a strange warmth through her chest, which she immediately squashed. "Fine, but I'm paying you back." Sebastian's chuckle was low. "We'll see." An hour later, Madison walked out of the store with a top-of-the-line laptop, noise-canceling headphones, and a tablet she hadn't planned on buying but the salesperson had insisted was essential. The total made her dizzy. But when she swiped Sebastian's card, the transaction went through without a hitch. That night, she texted him a curt, "Thank you." His reply came instantly. "Any time, wife." Madison threw her phone onto the couch, her face burning. Wife. The word shouldn't affect her, but it did. Over the next few weeks, their lives began to intertwine in unexpected ways. Sebastian started appearing at the penthouse unannounced, always with some excuse. "I left a file here. I wanted to check on the air conditioning. I thought you might like dinner." Madison protested at first, but slowly, she found herself looking forward to his visits. They'd sit at the kitchen island, sharing takeout, talking about everything and nothing. Sebastian told her about his work, the pressure of running a company his grandfather had built from nothing. Madison shared stories of disastrous clients and the time she accidentally sent a logo covered in cats to a law firm. He'd laughed, a real unguarded laugh that made her heart flip. "Your trouble, Madison Cole," he'd said. Madison had grinned. "You have no idea." But beneath the banter, tension simmered. Every time their hands brushed, every time their eyes met across the table, Madison felt the pull. It terrified her. One evening, Sebastian invited her to a charity gala. "Black tie," he'd said. "And I need you to meet some business associates." Madison had groaned but agreed. Chloe had practically combusted with excitement, dragging Madison to a boutique where they spent hours finding the perfect gown. The dress was midnight blue, floor length, with a slit that made Madison feel both elegant and scandalous. When Sebastian picked her up, his reaction was worth every moment of Chloe's fussing. He'd frozen, his gaze traveling from her heels to the way the dress hugged her waist, finally meeting her eyes. "You're going to be the most beautiful woman there." Madison's cheeks flamed. You don't look so bad yourself. He wore a tailored tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a spy movie. The gala was held in a historic hotel, all opulence and old money. Madison clung to Sebastian's arm as they navigated the crowd, her nerves singing. She'd never been to anything like this. Champagne flowed, a string quartet played, and everywhere she looked, people sparkled. Sebastian introduced her as his wife, and each time, Madison had to resist the urge to correct him, but the word began to feel less foreign, less like a lie. Sebastian. An older man boomed, clapping him on the shoulder. And who is this vision? Madison Cole, Sebastian said smoothly. My wife. The man's eyes widened. Wife? Since when? Recently, Sebastian replied, his hand settling possessively on Madison's lower back. We kept it private. The man laughed. Well, congratulations, you're a lucky man. Sebastian's gaze found Madison's. I know. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Madison smiled, made small talk, and tried not to think about how natural it felt to stand beside Sebastian, to play the role of his partner. But then Vanessa appeared. She wore a red dress that screamed look at me and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Sebastian, darling. I didn't realize you were bringing a date. Madison's stomach tightened. Sebastian's expression cooled. Vanessa, you've met Madison. My wife. Vanessa's smile didn't falter, but her eyes glittered with malice. Of course. How quaint. Madison bit back a retort, but Sebastian's hand tightened on her waist. If you'll excuse us, he said coldly. He steered Madison away, and she let out a shaky breath. She really doesn't like me. Vanessa doesn't like anyone, Sebastian said. Don't let her get to you. Madison glanced up at him. Were you two, you know? Sebastian's jaw tightened. Once. A long time ago. It didn't end well. Madison nodded, her chest tight with an emotion she didn't want to name. Jealousy. On the drive home, silence filled the car. Madison stared out the window, her mind churning. When they reached the penthouse, Sebastian walked her to the door. Thank you, he said, for tonight. You were perfect. Madison forced a smile. Just playing my part. Sebastian's gaze searched hers. Is that all this is to you? A part? Madison's breath caught. The air between them crackled. She should say yes, should remind him this was temporary, a contract, nothing more. But the words wouldn't come. Before she could answer, Sebastian stepped closer, his hand cupping her. Madison, he whispered. Her heart hammered. She should pull away, should stop this before it went too far. But when Sebastian's lips met hers, soft and tentative, all her resolve crumbled. The kiss deepened, his arms wrapping around her, and Madison melted into him. It felt right. Terrifyingly, impossibly right. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Sebastian rested his forehead against hers. This isn't fake for me, he said, his voice raw. Not anymore. Madison's eyes stung. She wanted to say the same, to admit that somewhere along the way she'd stopped pretending too. But fear held her back. What if this was just another game? What if she was just another obligation? I need time, she whispered. Sebastian nodded, stepping back. Take all the time you need. But Madison, I'm not going anywhere. As he left, Madison closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. She was falling for him. God help her. She was falling for her fake husband. The kiss changed everything. Madison couldn't unsee the way Sebastian had looked at her, couldn't unhear his confession. This isn't fake for me. Not anymore. She spent the next days in a haze, vacillating between hope and terror. What if he meant it? What if he didn't? Work became her refuge. She buried herself in projects, avoiding Sebastian's calls, his texts, the growing ache in her chest. But he was persistent. On Wednesday, flowers arrived. A massive bouquet of peonies, her favorite. Though she'd never told him, the card read simply, "Thinking of you. S." On Thursday, a box of pastries from the French bakery she'd mentioned loving appeared at her door. Friday, he showed up in person. Madison opened the door to find him standing there, hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "You're avoiding me." Madison crossed her arms. "I'm busy." Sebastian's gaze didn't waver. Busy or scared? Her defenses crumbled. Both. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Madison, I meant what I said. I'm not playing games." He ran a hand through his hair. Frustrated. "I don't know how this happened. I didn't plan to feel this way. But I do." Madison's throat tightened. "Sebastian, this was supposed to be temporary. A contract. Nothing more." It was. Sebastian agreed. But somewhere between the dinners and the galas and the late-night conversations, it stopped being just a contract for me. And I think, he stepped closer, his voice softening, "I think it stopped being just a contract for you too." Madison wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. He was right. She'd fallen for him despite every logical reason not to. "What happens when the year is up?" she whispered. "What happens when the contract ends?" Sebastian's hand found hers, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "Then we write a new one. One without penalties or obligations. One where we're together, because we choose to be." Madison's heart soared and shattered simultaneously. It sounded perfect. Too perfect. But what if your grandfather finds out the truth? What if someone challenges the marriage? What if Sebastian's expression hardened? "Then we deal with it. Together." Madison looked up at him, at the fierce determination in his eyes, and something inside her broke open. She'd spent so long protecting herself, building walls, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. "I'm terrified," she admitted. Sebastian's lips curved. "So am I." She laughed, a watery sound. "Some pair we make." He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. "We'll figure it out, Madison. I promise." She buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, and for the first time since signing that damned contract, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this disaster might turn into something real. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The following Monday, Madison was leaving the building when a woman approached her, sleek black hair, designer sunglasses, an air of authority that set Madison's nerves on edge. "Mrs. Hale?" The woman extended a hand. "I'm Juliet Brennan, investigative journalist. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your marriage." Madison's blood ran cold. "Excuse me?" Juliet's smile was sharp. "Your marriage to Sebastian Hale. It's quite sudden, isn't it? Some might say suspicious." Madison's pulse hammered. "I don't know what you're implying." Juliet pulled out a tablet, swiping to a photo. "This is you, 3 months ago, signing what you believed to be a lease agreement. Correct?" Madison's stomach dropped. "How did I have sources," Juliet said smoothly. "And those sources suggest that your marriage isn't quite what it seems. Care to comment?" Madison's mind raced. If this story broke, everything would unravel. Sebastian's inheritance, the contract, their fragile, tentative relationship. "No comment," Madison said, her voice shaking. Juliet's smile widened. "I'll take that as confirmation. Expect the article to run by Friday." She walked away, leaving Madison frozen on the sidewalk. Madison called Sebastian immediately. "We have a problem." He met her at the penthouse within the hour, his expression grim as she recounted the encounter. "Juliet Brennan," Sebastian muttered. "She's been digging into my family for years. If she publishes this," Madison's voice cracked. "It's over, isn't it? The contract, the inheritance, us." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "Not if I can stop her." "How?" Madison demanded. "She has proof, Sebastian. She knows about the lease, the contract, everything." Sebastian paced, his mind clearly working. There's one way. We make the marriage real. Madison blinked. What? If we're legally married, truly married, there's no story. It's just a couple who chose to keep their relationship private. But, Madison's head spun. We are legally married. On paper, yes. But if we go public, have a ceremony, make it undeniable, Juliet loses her angle. Madison's heart pounded. You want to have a wedding? A real one. Sebastian stopped in front of her, his gaze intense. Not just for the press, Madison. For us. I want this to be real. I want you to be my wife, not because of a contract, but because I love you. The words knocked the air from her lungs. You love me? Sebastian's hand cupped her face. I love you, Madison Cole. I love your sarcasm, your strength, the way you challenge me. I love that you make me want to be better. And I know this is fast, and I know it's insane, but I don't care. I want you. For real. Tears blurred Madison's vision. She wanted to say yes, to leap into his arms and forget everything else. But doubt gnawed at her. What if he was only saying this to save his inheritance? What if, once the threat passed, he'd regret it? I need to think, she whispered. Sebastian nodded, stepping back. I understand. But Madison, whatever you decide, I meant every word. After he left, Madison collapsed onto the couch, her mind a whirlwind. Chloe called moments later as if sensing the crisis. Talk to me, Chloe demanded. Madison spilled everything. The journalist, the threat, Sebastian's confession. When she finished, Chloe was silent for a long moment. Do you love him? Chloe asked finally. Madison closed her eyes. Yes. Then what are you waiting for? Fear, Madison admitted. What if this blows up? What if I lose everything? Chloe's voice softened. Maddie, you've spent your whole life playing it safe. And where has that gotten you? Maybe it's time to take a risk. On the person who makes your heart race. Madison let the words sink in. Chloe was right. She'd been so afraid of getting hurt that she'd nearly let the best thing in her life slip away. The next morning, Madison called Sebastian. Let's do it. Let's have a wedding. Sebastian's relief was palpable. Are you sure? Madison smiled. I'm terrified. But yes, I'm sure, because I love you too, Sebastian Hale. And I'm tired of pretending I don't. The line went quiet. Then Sebastian's voice, rough with emotion. I'll make you so happy, Madison. I promise. They planned the wedding in a whirlwind. Small, intimate. Just close friends and family. No press, no spectacle. Just them. The ceremony took place in the mansion's garden. Under a canopy of white roses, Madison wore a simple lace gown, her hair loose, and when she walked down the aisle, Sebastian's eyes shone with unshed tears. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, words of love and promise and hope. And when Sebastian kissed her, sealing their union, Madison knew with bone-deep certainty that this was real. The article never ran. Juliet had nothing to report. Just a happy couple, deeply in love. At the reception, Edward pulled Madison aside. You're good for him, he said gruffly. Don't let him turn into a workaholic hermit like me. Madison grinned. I'll do my best. As the sun set, Madison and Sebastian stood together, watching their guests dance. This isn't how I imagined my life going, Madison said. Sebastian's arm tightened around her. Better or worse? Madison looked up at him, her heart full. So much better. And as they swayed to the music, Madison realized that sometimes the biggest disasters led to the most beautiful beginnings. Married life, Madison quickly discovered, was both simpler and more complicated than she'd imagined. The penthouse, once a space she'd inhabited cautiously, became a true home. Sebastian's suits hung beside her thrift store dresses, his expensive cologne mingled with her drugstore lotion, and somehow, it all worked. But the transition from contract to genuine partnership wasn't seamless. Old habits died hard. Madison still tensed when Sebastian handed her his credit card. Still argued when he offered to pay for things she insisted she could handle herself. One Saturday morning, Sebastian found her hunched over her laptop at the kitchen island, stress radiating off her in waves. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down 2 mugs of coffee. "Client from hell," Madison muttered. "Wants a complete rebrand by Monday, but won't pay more than $100. Sebastian frowned. "That's exploitation. Tell them no." Madison laughed bitterly. "Easy for you to say. You're not a freelancer living pitch to pitch." "I am now," Sebastian said quietly. "Your husband. Which means your problems are my problems." Madison looked up, her defenses rising. "I don't need you to fix this." "I'm not trying to fix it," Sebastian said, sitting beside her. "I'm just reminding you that you're not alone anymore." The words softened her. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Sorry. I'm just not used to this, us." Sebastian pressed a kiss to her hair. "Neither am I. But we'll figure it out." They did. Slowly, Madison learned to accept Sebastian's help without feeling like she was losing her independence. Sebastian learned that sometimes Madison needed to struggle on her own, not because she didn't trust him, but because she needed to prove to herself she could. Their first real fight happened 3 weeks after the wedding. Madison had been invited to speak at a design conference in New York, a huge opportunity, but Sebastian had a business dinner the same night, one he'd promised his grandfather he'd attend. "You could reschedule," Madison suggested. "So could you," Sebastian countered. Madison's temper flared. "This is my career, Sebastian. I can't just blow it off. And this dinner is crucial for the company," Sebastian said, his voice rising. "My family's legacy." Madison crossed her arms. "So your legacy matters more than mine?" "That's not what I said." "Then what are you saying?" The argument spiraled, both of them too stubborn to back down. Finally, Madison grabbed her coat. "I'm going for a walk." Sebastian didn't stop her. She wandered the city for an hour, her anger slowly cooling into regret. When she returned, Sebastian was on the couch, his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," they said simultaneously. Madison sat beside him. "I shouldn't have implied your work doesn't matter." Sebastian took her hand. "And I shouldn't have dismissed your opportunity." "You're brilliant, Madison. You deserve to shine." Madison's throat tightened. "We're both terrible at this." Sebastian managed a faint smile. "We'll get better." They compromised. Madison attended the conference, and Sebastian sent a representative to the dinner. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. As the weeks turned into months, Madison realized she was happier than she'd ever been. Sebastian challenged her, supported her, made her laugh until her sides ached, and she did the same for him. She dragged him to food trucks and indie concerts, introduced him to the joy of binge-watching terrible reality TV. And slowly, the man who'd been wound so tight began to relax. But the past had a way of catching up. One evening, Madison received an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "You should know the truth." Inside was a single attachment. A scanned document. Madison opened it, her blood turning to ice. It was the original lease, the one she'd thought she signed. But beneath her signature was a note in Sebastian's handwriting, pending approval for contract substitution. Her hands shook. He'd planned it. From the very beginning, he'd intended to trick her. "Madison," Sebastian's voice came from the doorway. "What are you looking at?" She turned the laptop toward him, her voice hollow. "Care to explain?" Sebastian's face paled. He crossed the room, reading the document. "Madison, I can explain. Then explain," she said, her voice breaking. "Because right now, it looks like you manipulated me from day one." Sebastian ran a hand through his hair. "That document, it was a contingency plan. My lawyer suggested it in case I couldn't find someone willing to marry me. But I never used it." Madison gestured at the screen. "Your handwriting says otherwise." "It was written before I met you," Sebastian insisted. When I gave you the lease, it was a real lease. I didn't switch it. This, he gestured angrily at the laptop. This is fake. Someone's trying to sabotage us. Madison wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. How do I know you're telling the truth? Sebastian's eyes flashed. Because I love you, Madison. I would never hurt you like this. Then who sent it? Sebastian's jaw tightened. I have an idea. He made a call, his voice sharp and commanding. Within an hour, Diane Wu arrived, along with a cybersecurity expert. The expert traced the email. It came from an offshore account, routed through multiple servers, but the metadata revealed something crucial. The document had been digitally altered. Sebastian's handwriting was real, but it had been copied from another document and pasted onto the fake lease. Vanessa, Sebastian said grimly. The expert nodded. The IP trace leads back to an address registered to a Vanessa Klein. Madison's stomach twisted. She's been trying to break us up this whole time. Sebastian pulled Madison into his arms. I'm sorry you had to go through this. I should have dealt with Vanessa a long time ago. Madison buried her face in his chest. I'm sorry I doubted you. Sebastian tilted her chin up. Don't apologize. I gave you reason to doubt when I wasn't honest from the start. But I promise, Madison, no more secrets. Madison nodded, her trust slowly rebuilding. They confronted Vanessa together. The woman admitted everything, her jealousy and bitterness pouring out. She'd hoped to destroy their marriage, to prove Sebastian had made a mistake. Instead, she'd only strengthened their bond. Vanessa was removed from their lives, and Madison and Sebastian emerged from the ordeal closer than ever. One night, lying in bed, Sebastian traced patterns on Madison's arm. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Signing that contract? Madison considered. A year ago, she would have said yes. But now? Not for a second, she whispered. Because it brought me to you. Sebastian kissed her, slow and deep. I love you, Madison Hale. Madison smiled against his lips. I love you too. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of what came next. 6 months into their real marriage, Madison's career took off in ways she'd never imagined. Word spread about her work, and clients who would have ignored her pitches a year ago were now reaching out, offering projects that made her head spin. She landed a contract with a major tech startup, redesigning their entire brand identity. The pay was enough to make her old self weep with joy. Sebastian, look at this, Madison said one evening, shoving her laptop toward him. He read the email, a grin spreading across his face. Madison, this is incredible. She bit her lip. It's also terrifying. What if I screw it up? Sebastian pulled her onto his lap. You won't. And if you need help, I'm here. Not to take over, just to support. Madison kissed him. Have I mentioned you're the best fake husband ever? Sebastian's eyes glinted. Fake? She laughed. Fine. Best real husband. But success brought new challenges. Madison's workload exploded, and she found herself pulling late nights, fueled by coffee and adrenaline. Sebastian, ever understanding, gave her space. But one night, he found her asleep at her desk, her face pressed against her keyboard. Madison, he said gently, shaking her shoulder. You need to go to bed, she blinked groggily. Just 5 more minutes. Sebastian scooped her up, carrying her to their bedroom. As he tucked her in, she mumbled, I'm lucky to have you. Sebastian's chest tightened. I'm the lucky one. The next morning, Madison woke to find a note on her nightstand. Take care of yourself, or I'll have to intervene. Love, your overbearing husband. She smiled, her heart full. But the balance between work and marriage was delicate. One Friday, Madison forgot their anniversary dinner, too wrapped up in a client crisis. Sebastian waited at the restaurant for an hour before calling. Where are you? Oh God, Madison gasped, horror washing over her. Sebastian, I'm so sorry. I lost track of time. There was a long silence. It's fine. We'll reschedule. But she could hear the hurt in his voice. She rushed home, guilt gnawing at her. Sebastian was in the living room, His tie loosened, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "I'm so sorry," Madison said, sitting beside him. "I was an idiot." Sebastian sighed. "I know your work is important, Madison. I'd never ask you to sacrifice that. But sometimes, it feels like I'm competing for your attention." Madison's throat tightened. "You're not. You're the most important thing in my life." "Then show me," Sebastian said quietly. His words struck deep. Madison realized she'd been so focused on proving herself professionally that she'd neglected the person who mattered most. "Starting tomorrow," Madison said, "I'm setting boundaries. Work ends at 7. No exceptions. Unless there's a genuine emergency." Sebastian's lips curved. "I'll hold you to that." They kept that promise. Madison learned to delegate, to say no, to prioritize her marriage without sacrificing her career. And Sebastian, in turn, made space for her ambitions, celebrating her victories and holding her through her defeats. One evening, as they cooked dinner together, Sebastian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's my grandfather." Madison wiped her hands on a towel. "Answer it." Sebastian stepped into the other room, and Madison tried not to eavesdrop. But his tone grew tense. His words clipped. When he returned, his expression was troubled. "Everything okay?" Madison asked. "Edward wants to retire," Sebastian said. "He's handing the company over to me, fully." Madison's eyes widened. "That's huge." "Congratulations." Sebastian didn't smile. "It also means more responsibility. More pressure. I'll be the sole decision-maker for a company with thousands of employees." Madison took his hands. "You can handle. You're brilliant, Sebastian. And you're not alone. You have me." Sebastian pulled her close. "I don't know what I'd do without you. You'll never have to find out," Madison whispered. The transition was grueling. Sebastian worked longer hours, the weight of the company pressing down on him. Madison saw the strain in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. So she did what she could. She made sure he ate, that he slept, that he took breaks. She reminded him to breathe. And slowly, Sebastian found his footing. He implemented changes, modernized systems, and earned the respect of the board. One night he came home beaming. "We did it," he said. "The quarterly earnings are up 20%. Madison threw her arms around him. "I'm so proud of you." Sebastian kissed her. "None of this would be possible without you." As the year anniversary of their real wedding approached, Madison reflected on how far they'd come. From a fraudulent contract to a genuine partnership. From strangers to soulmates. She wanted to do something special. Something that showed Sebastian how much he meant to her. So she planned a surprise. On the night of their anniversary, Madison blindfolded Sebastian and led him to the rooftop terrace. When she removed the blindfold, he gasped. The terrace was transformed. String lights crisscrossed overhead, candles flickered on every surface, and a table for two sat in the center, laden with his favorite foods. "Madison," he breathed. I wanted to recreate our first real date," Madison said. "But better. Because now, there's no pretending." Sebastian's eyes shone. "I love you so much," Madison grinned. "I know." They danced under the stars, the city sprawling below them, and Madison thought about the girl who'd stumbled into this mess a year ago. She'd been scared, broke, desperate. Now, she was strong, successful, loved. All because she'd signed a contract she didn't read. "Best mistake I ever made," she murmured. Sebastian tilted her chin up. "What was?" "Marrying you." Sebastian's smile was radiant. "Then I guess we're both lucky." And as they swayed to the music, Madison knew with absolute certainty that this love, this life, was worth every risk, every fear, every moment of doubt. Because in the end, she hadn't just found a husband, she'd found home. Life settled into a rhythm that felt both exhilarating and comforting. Madison's design firm, which she'd officially launched with Sebastian's encouragement and a small loan she insisted on repaying, was thriving. She'd hired 2 junior designers and moved into a co-working space downtown. Sebastian, meanwhile, had transformed Hale Industries into a model of innovation and ethical business practices, earning accolades from industry leaders and grudging respect from his harshest critics. But with success came new pressures. One Thursday afternoon, Madison received a call from her mother, a woman she'd barely spoken to in 5 years. "Madison, honey, I saw your interview in Design Monthly. I'm so proud of you." Madison's grip on her phone tightened. "Thanks, Mom." There was a pause. "I was hoping we could meet. Maybe have lunch? Catch up?" Madison's instinct was to refuse. Her mother had been absent for most of her adult life, too wrapped up in her own dramas to notice Madison's struggles. But a part of her, the part that still longed for maternal approval, couldn't say no. "Sure. Saturday? Perfect. I'll text you the details." When Madison told Sebastian, his expression darkened. "Are you sure that's a good idea? She hasn't exactly been there for you." Madison shrugged. "Maybe people change." Sebastian kissed her forehead. "Just be careful. I don't want her to hurt you." Saturday came, and Madison met her mother at a trendy cafe in Lincoln Park. Her mother, still beautiful despite the years, greeted her with an enthusiastic hug that felt more performative than genuine. "You look wonderful," her mother gushed. "Marriage clearly agrees with you." Madison forced a smile. "Thanks. How have you been?" "Oh, you know. Busy. I've been thinking about starting a lifestyle blog. Influencing, they call it." Madison nodded, her patience already thinning. The conversation meandered through small talk until her mother finally got to the point. "Madison, I need a favor." "Of course." Madison's stomach sank. "I've hit a bit of a rough patch financially. Just temporary, of course. But I was hoping you could lend me some money." "Maybe 20,000? Madison's blood ran cold. $20,000? "Mom, I don't have that kind of cash lying around, but your husband." Her mother's smile turned calculating. "He's a billionaire. Surely he could spare it." Madison's temper flared. "So that's why you wanted to meet. Not to reconnect, but to ask for money." Her mother's facade cracked. "Don't be dramatic. I'm your mother. Helping me should be a given." Madison stood, her voice shaking. "You don't get to show up after years of silence and demand money. I built my life without you, and I'm not about to let you leech off me now." Her mother's eyes hardened. "You always were selfish." Madison laughed bitterly. "And you always were manipulative. Goodbye, Mom." She walked out, her hands trembling. When she got home, Sebastian took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. "What happened?" Madison told him everything. Sebastian's jaw tightened. "She has some nerve." Madison leaned into him. I wanted to believe she'd changed." "People like that don't change," Sebastian said gently. "But you did the right thing. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation." Madison nodded, the ache in her chest slowly easing. A few weeks later, Edward Hale invited them to a family gathering at the estate. It was a rare occasion, as Edward preferred solitude, but he insisted. Charlotte, Sebastian's sister, was there with her fiancé, a charming architect named Ben. The evening was pleasant, filled with laughter and good food. But as dessert was served, Edward tapped his glass, calling for attention. "I have an announcement," he said. His gaze swept the table before landing on Sebastian and Madison. "I've decided to establish a foundation in my late wife's name. Its focus will be on supporting young entrepreneurs and designers. And I want you two to lead it." Madison nearly dropped her fork. "Me?" Edward's expression softened. "You've built something remarkable, Madison. And you understand the struggles of those trying to make it on their own. I can't think of anyone better." Tears pricked Madison's eyes. She looked at Sebastian, who squeezed her hand. "We'd be honored," Sebastian said. The foundation became Madison and Sebastian's shared passion project. They worked side by side, interviewing applicants, funding startups, and mentoring young creatives. It was exhausting and exhilarating, and it deepened their bond in ways Madison hadn't anticipated. One evening, after a particularly successful grant ceremony, Sebastian pulled Madison onto the dance floor of the venue they'd rented. "What are you doing?" Madison laughed. "Dancing with my wife," Sebastian said, "spinning her." "Do I need a reason?" Madison grinned. "I suppose not." As they swayed, Sebastian's expression grew serious. "Madison, there's something I've been thinking about." She tilted her head. "What?" "Kids," Madison's breath caught. "You want kids?" Sebastian's eyes searched hers. "Eventually. If you do. I know it's a big step, and there's no rush. But I wanted you to know that when I imagine the future, I see you and maybe a couple of mini versions of us running around." Madison's heart swelled. She'd never let herself dream that far ahead, too afraid of jinxing the happiness she'd found. But now, with Sebastian looking at her like she was his entire world, the dream felt possible. "I'd like that," she whispered. Sebastian's smile was radiant. "Yeah? Yeah." They didn't rush, but the conversation planted a seed, and over the following months they talked about what parenthood might look like, how they'd balance careers and family, what kind of parents they wanted to be. And one night, a year and a half after their real wedding, Madison took a pregnancy test. She stared at the 2 pink lines, her heart pounding. When Sebastian came home, she met him at the door. The test clutched in her hand. He took one look at her face and knew. "Madison?" She held up the test, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We're going to be parents." Sebastian's reaction was immediate. He swept her into his arms, spinning her around, laughing and crying simultaneously. I love you so much." Madison buried her face in his neck. "I love you too." The pregnancy wasn't easy. Madison dealt with morning sickness that lasted all day, mood swings that left Sebastian baffled, and a growing anxiety about whether she'd be a good mother. But Sebastian was her rock. He held her hair back when she was sick, rubbed her swollen feet, and reassured her every time she doubted herself. One night as they lay in bed, Sebastian's hand resting on her growing belly, Madison said, "Do you ever think about how this all started?" Sebastian chuckled. "You mean the fraudulent marriage contract?" Madison swatted his arm. "Yeah, that. I do," Sebastian admitted, "and I'm grateful every day that you were desperate enough to sign without reading." Madison laughed. "That's one way to put it." Sebastian's tone turned serious. "I mean it, Madison. You've given me everything. A real partnership, a family. A life I didn't know I needed." Madison's throat tightened. "You've given me the same." Their daughter was born on a sunny spring morning. They named her Lily, after Sebastian's mother. Holding her for the first time, Madison felt a love so fierce it terrified her. This tiny, perfect human was theirs. Sebastian, tears streaming down his face, whispered, "She's beautiful. Just like her mom." Madison smiled through her own tears. "She has your eyes." Life with Lily was chaotic and wonderful. Sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, the pure joy of her first smile. Madison and Sebastian navigated parenthood together, stumbling and learning and loving every moment. One evening, as they sat on the couch, Lily asleep between them, Sebastian said, "We did good, didn't we?" Madison leaned her head on his shoulder. "We really did." And as she looked at her daughter, at the man who'd once been a stranger and was now her everything, Madison realized that sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected places. Even a marriage contract disguised as a lease. The final section needs 404 words to reach exactly 12,000 words. Years passed in a blur of laughter, challenges, and growth. Lily grew into a spirited toddler with Sebastian's sharp mind and Madison's creative soul. The foundation flourished, helping hundreds of young entrepreneurs achieve their dreams. Madison's design firm expanded internationally, while Sebastian's leadership transformed Hale Industries into a beacon of corporate responsibility. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Sebastian surprised Madison with a weekend getaway to the lake house where they'd spent their first vacation as a real couple. They left Lily with Charlotte, who'd become a devoted aunt, and escaped to the quiet shores. On their last evening, they sat on the dock, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Madison rested her head on Sebastian's shoulder, contentment washing over her. "Do you remember what you said to me at that wedding?" Madison asked softly. "The first night we met?" Sebastian smiled. "Pretend you're with me." "I thought you were insane." Madison laughed. "Some arrogant stranger asking me to play girlfriend." "And I thought you were the most intriguing woman I'd ever met," Sebastian said. "Even then, something told me you were going to change my life." Madison turned to face him. "We've come a long way from that fake relationship." Sebastian cupped her face. "The best decision I ever made was asking you to pretend. The second best was falling in love with you for real." Madison's eyes glistened. "I used to think I signed that contract by mistake. But now I know it was fate. The universe conspiring to bring us together, even if the method was completely unethical." Sebastian chuckled. "I'll take unethical if it means I get to spend my life with you." As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, Madison thought about the scared broke girl who'd walked into that penthouse 2 years ago. She'd been looking for shelter and found a home, looking for security and found love. "Thank you," Madison whispered. "For what?" "For being patient. For seeing past my walls. For loving me even when I made it difficult." Sebastian kissed her, slow and tender. "Loving you has never been difficult, Madison Hale. It's the easiest thing I've ever done." And as the stars emerged overhead, Madison knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Not because of a contract, but because they chose each other. Every single day. The end. Don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10, and let us know what you thought in the comments below.